Racist teacher humiliates black girl in front of the class, not knowing who her mother is. A teacher chooses to embarrass a black girl in front of the entire class, unaware of the girl's mother's identity. Her actions will surprise everyone and lead to serious consequences for her prejudice. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below. 8-year-old Kelly Jackson was a sweet, curious girl who loved school and especially enjoyed her third-grade class. Known for her gentle smile and her love of reading, she had a sparkle in her eyes that made her mother, Janine, immensely proud. Janine was a prominent civil rights attorney, known throughout the state for her advocacy for equality and her tireless efforts to protect the rights of the vulnerable. One Tuesday morning, Kelly entered her classroom at Hillside Elementary with her favorite book tucked under her arm and her hair neatly styled in 2 beautiful braids, adorned with colorful beads that jingled as she walked. Her mother had spent extra time that morning braiding it, and Kelly felt proud of the look. But the day would take a dark turn she could never have expected. Her teacher, Miss Rebecca Hayes, had always seemed strict, but Kelly noticed that Miss Hayes often treated her and some of her other black classmates a little differently. Miss Hayes would snap at them for the smallest things and occasionally made snide comments about good behavior and respect. Kelly's friends had started noticing it too, and even though they couldn't understand it fully, there was an unspoken discomfort about how Miss Hayes looked at Kelly. That day, Miss Hayes had planned a small celebration to reward the class for their recent project work. She had brought in juice and snacks, and the children were thrilled to have a break from their usual routine. Miss Hayes was passing out drinks when she came to Kelly. "Kelly," Miss Hayes said in a syrupy tone that dripped with something insincere, "maybe today's snack will help you sit still for once." Kelly's heart sank, but she forced a polite smile and reached out to take her juice. Suddenly, Miss Hayes's hand tipped, and the juice splashed down on Kelly's head. Cold liquid trickled over her braids, soaking her beads and her scalp. The room fell silent. Kelly sat frozen, stunned, as laughter started to ripple through the classroom. The bright orange juice dripped down her face, staining her clothes and pooling on her desk. But worse than the wet, sticky mess was the look on Miss Hayes's face. A smug, cruel smirk that told Kelly it hadn't been an accident. "Well, maybe if your hair wasn't so messy, this wouldn't have happened," Miss Hayes said loudly. "Those beads can't make it any easier to keep still." Kelly felt the sting of humiliation wash over her, more painful than any physical wound. She held back tears, refusing to let Miss Hayes see her cry. She clenched her hands together, staring at her desk, while the whispers and giggles of her classmates swirled around her. When the school day finally ended, Kelly ran out to meet her mother, who immediately noticed the orange stains on her shirt and the dampness in her hair. Janine knelt down, her face filled with worry. "Kelly, what happened?" she asked gently, wiping some of the sticky juice from Kelly's cheek. Kelly hesitated, but as Janine held her, the story poured out. Janine's expression shifted from shock to anger as Kelly recounted the details, describing Miss Hayes's taunts and the way she had been humiliated in front of her friends. For a moment, Janine couldn't believe it. She'd spent years fighting cases like these, but to see her own daughter experience it was unimaginable. The next morning, Janine took a personal day from work and marched into Hillside Elementary with Kelly by her side. She requested an immediate meeting with the principal, Mr. Foster, who was caught off guard by the intensity of Janine's request. Once in his office, Janine recounted the incident in precise, unwavering detail, her voice controlled but fierce. Mr. Foster listened with wide eyes as Janine described Miss Hayes's behavior and the humiliation Kelly had endured. "She poured juice on my daughter, Mr. Foster," Janine said firmly. "Not by accident, but as an act of malice. I want an immediate investigation into this teacher's conduct. No child should experience this, especially at the hands of someone entrusted with their education and well-being." Mr. Foster immediately summoned Miss Hayes to the office. When she arrived, she looked at Janine with surprise that quickly turned into nervousness. She hadn't known who Kelly's mother was, but she could tell from the look in Janine's eyes that she was in serious trouble. "Miss Hayes, can you explain the incident with Kelly yesterday?" Mr. Foster asked, his voice calm but firm. Miss Hayes tried to stammer an excuse, claiming it had been an accident and that she hadn't meant to upset Kelly, but Janine wasn't having it. "An accident?" Janine repeated, her voice filled with controlled anger. "You humiliated my daughter, mocked her heritage by targeting her hair, and reduced her to tears in front of her classmates. This goes far beyond an accident. This is targeted bullying and, frankly, an abuse of power." Under the pressure of Janine's steady gaze and Mr. Foster's stern expression, Miss Hayes's excuses faltered. She tried to defend herself, but it was clear that her actions had left no reasonable defense. Mr. Foster assured Janine that the school took the matter seriously and would investigate fully. Within a week, Miss Hayes was put on leave while the school's board reviewed the case. Parents began to hear about what had happened, and soon, many were rallying in support of Kelly and calling for Miss Hayes to be removed. Kelly returned to school with the support of her friends and classmates who now saw her as a symbol of resilience. She walked down the halls with her head held high, proud of her mother and the strength they had shown together. And she knew that because of her courage to speak up and her mother's determination, Miss Hayes would never be able to harm another student again. As word spread, Hillside Elementary found itself at the center of a media storm. Local newspapers and soon larger outlets picked up the story. The headline, "Teacher Humiliates 8-year-old Black Girl in Classroom Incident," ignited strong reactions in the community. Parents of all backgrounds demanded answers, and the school board was overwhelmed with letters, emails, and calls. Janine, though still shaken by the incident, used her experience to guide others, fielding questions from journalists and speaking publicly on the need for schools to confront discrimination with zero tolerance. Meanwhile, Kelly's classmates, especially her close friends, rallied around her. A few of her friends started a small group called Kelly's Crew, a nod to her courage in the face of injustice. They'd seen their friend hurt and humiliated, and even at their young age, they understood the wrongness of it. Kelly's Crew began handing out bracelets that read, "Be kind, be fair, be brave." Their simple message caught on, and soon the whole school was filled with the bright wristbands, a quiet but powerful show of unity. Miss Hayes, however, remained on leave while the investigation continued, and she was growing increasingly bitter. In her mind, she saw herself as the victim of an overreaction, dismissing her own actions as a misunderstanding. But the investigation uncovered past complaints from parents and students of color who recalled Miss Hayes making subtle but uncomfortable comments, reinforcing a pattern of behavior. These testimonies, alongside the juice incident, made it clear to the school board that action was necessary. Within a few weeks, they officially terminated Miss Hayes' employment, sending a message that discrimination, however veiled, would not be tolerated. After Miss Hayes' departure, Mr. Foster, the principal, invited Janine to help lead a school-wide initiative aimed at promoting inclusivity, kindness, and cultural understanding. Janine agreed, wanting to turn this painful experience into a powerful lesson for the whole school. She worked with teachers and administrators to develop an ongoing program called Project Harmony *, which included regular workshops, classroom discussions on diversity, and lessons on empathy and respect. The school even invited guest speakers, from activists to authors, to share stories of resilience and allyship. For Kelly, the journey was transformative. She'd gone from being a quiet third grader to a symbol of bravery and change in her school. In the months that followed, she found her voice, joining Project Harmony and speaking to her classmates about what it felt like to stand up for herself. Though nervous at first, her mother was there each time, smiling proudly from the audience as Kelly shared her experiences. And over time, her confidence grew, becoming a source of inspiration not only to her peers but to adults as well. One day toward the end of the school year, Kelly and her mother were leaving school when a young boy, a first grader, tugged on Kelly's sleeve. He held up his wrist, showing off a worn, "Be kind, be fair, be brave" bracelet. "Kelly, are you the brave one?" he asked shyly. Kelly smiled. "I guess so. But we're all brave if we stand up for each other." And as they walked home that day, Janine put her arm around her daughter, grateful for the journey they'd taken together. Kelly had faced something hard, but she'd also found the power of her voice and the strength of a community willing to stand with her. In the end, what started as an act of cruelty turned into a movement of kindness and unity, one that would shape Hillside Elementary for years to come. Leave a comment if you enjoyed this story. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll make me very happy. Thank you, and I look forward to your like.